Hello and welcome to Coffee and Catholics, a Catholic women's talk show podcast. I'm Stacy, one of your hosts, and with me I have...
Hi, I'm Alicia.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Lauren.
Hello and welcome to Coffee and Catholics. This week we are going to be talking about how God helps us in our lives.
And more specifically, how do we allow God to help us? Because if you look all through Scripture, there's this common theme, especially in the Old Testament, you see this. The Lord is my helper in Psalm 54. The Lord is the upholder of my life. In Isaiah 41:10, I will strengthen you, I will help you. And again, even in Hebrews, it says, the Lord is my helper, I will not fear, what can man do to me? And over again, this theme keeps coming up in Scripture, and even in the writings of the saints, about how God is our helper. It's interesting to me because the God of the universe, right? Like the God who made everything, the God to whom we are subject, everything depends on his breath. All science, all history, all of this beautiful, big, gigantic world depends on his thinking and thought and genius. And the way that he introduces himself to Adam and Eve, to mankind, the very first thing he says is, I am your helper. And so how do I receive his help? I know he wants to help me. He never changes. He wants to help me in my life. The saints tell us that over and over again. But how do I actually let God help me? Or let anyone help me? Maybe that's where we need to start.
While you're talking about that, I thought about just recently, well, I guess I've heard it before, but it came up again recently. Michelangelo's God and Adam in the Sistine Chapel, where God is reaching out and Adam's finger is bent. And so God's is extended, but Adam's is bent, and how it's always up to us to connect with God, to outstretch our finger to him and touch him. Like he's always there, prepared to make contact with us and to be there for us. That's up to us to make the last little move. I mean, just as much as the bend of a finger. It's not that much effort for us to turn towards God. Well, it may feel that like it's a big effort. Like, sometimes depending on situations, it can be really hard for us emotionally to turn towards God. But it's the fact that it's always up to us to make that connection, because he's already ready to make the connection with us. We have to make the choice.
I think part of it is too that there's so much in our society that, or really it's not just our society, just in all of Western history, that has a lot to do with bootstrapping it and making it through and doing it on your own and fighting through it and being strong, which are not bad things. But in the economy of the kingdom, that isn't how you progress. That isn't how you get to union with God. Bootstrapping it is the opposite of progressing in union with God. But it's so hard for us to turn that off. Or it's hard for me to turn that off. So he says, and the saints tell us, he wants to help us even in these little things, these daily things. So what do you need help with? Like,
we are in the society of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And I think as a mom or just like women in general, we tend to have this, we have to do it all type of mentality. Our society kind of feeds into that. And I know I struggle a lot with just feeling like it's all, like there's a lot like a weight on me to get things, to take care of different things in the house and with the kids and with the family, keeping things together. And a lot of times I can see how God has moved in my life when I look back, but actually being in the moment and saying, and that whole, I like how you put it, like, how do we allow God to help us? Because it really is letting him in and seeing, what ways do we put that trust in him? And that's something I tend to struggle with in the moment a lot. Definitely struggle with really noticing those moments where I need to stop and say, okay, God, you take the rest. Like, lifting that finger up to reach to him. Today we had sick kids dealing with, and we have family in town for a funeral, and I'm feeling really like I'm kind of not being able to do all the different things that ways I want to be able to help the family, but recognizing that my place right now is to be taking care of my kids.
That's what we're getting at, Annie. I think that's really like what you're saying is exactly the question we're asking here is how do we recognize when we need help? How do we recognize when there is something I need right now that only God can give me? I think that's number one. Like that moment where we move from saying, oh, that panic that we're feeling or that lack that we're recognizing in ourselves, that there's something needed here that I don't have. How do we move from that moment to asking God for the help, and then B, waiting to receive it? I think that might be it. Like, or not, maybe it's not waiting. Maybe we just go about our day and we just assume he's going to help. I just want to know what it looks like. Like, what does that look like in our lives? Lori,
what does that look like? Because I feel like I struggle with that a lot.
No, I do too. And I think that's a struggle everybody has. And I'm curious.
A couple weeks ago, it was me crying in my car on the way to the hospital. My dad had been sent to the ER, and just praying Hail Mary after Hail Mary and saying, Lord, I can't do this on my own. That's what it was. That's what it looked like.
So you're saying like that when that happens to me,
not every time,
I just start praying and I tell him I can't do this by myself.
Yeah. That's what it looked like a couple weeks ago anyways. I mean, it can look different.
Help? Like, can you guys think of times like where you've really felt God's assistance in your life? Maybe let's start there. Where you can honestly say, I could totally feel him aiding me right then. Well, I was saying, let's think of, can you think of a time when where you could feel him helping you? Where you knew he was helping you in a situation you were in? When have you felt God's help? When have you received his help? When have you felt him aiding you? And what did that look like? Maybe that's the question we need to start with. So on a day-to-day basis, where I come up against my limitations are going to be with my emotions, my ability to be calm, my ability to be not reactive and really looking maybe for a deeper solution, maybe a wisdom. I am very limited in my ability to do that a lot with my kids on my own. Now it gets better as I get older, and as I start to recognize when God helps me the right way to respond, it gets better and easier. But the thing I find myself needing help the most with is, what do I say? Like right now, and how do I say this in a way that will benefit every single person in the room and that won't cause pain? And my problem is I don't always get to that point. Like I usually just fire off before I ask that question, and then I have to pull it back. But more and more, I started paying attention to the ways he is helping me, so I can start looking to see if I can sort of just fake my way into that, because that's what you told me to do last time. So that helped. Mimicking God, I guess, would be thinking back of the times when he has helped you or you felt his assistance. And then when you're in that situation again, maybe mimicking that help, sort of walking your way into what you know was good last time. I do that a lot. But the main thing I need help with truly is just that second when I realize, okay, I don't have what this person needs. I don't have the patience. I don't have the sweetness. I don't have the cheerfulness. Don't have it. I just don't have it. And asking God to give it to me. And believing that he will.
Yeah, I have that same problem. It's like, shooting off your mouth before you step back and ask those questions. And I know that that's something that I, like, on my, with helping my kids, it's like, oh, you shouldn't be, don't yell at your brother, but following that own advice for myself and say, okay, let's step back and take a deep breath, or for me, I have to, going in the other room and saying, looking at something and just saying it quick, God help me through this. I know, Lauren, you've talked about before, I think we mentioned it on here, and I know through your Merciful Mama retreat, every time you see the wipes that remind that you focus back on Jesus, and having those like staple things that just kind of redirect you.
So fixed points that turn your mind back to the source of help.
I think I'm more aware of those types of things when I'm able to frequent the sacraments more often.
Yeah.
Or when I'm able to go to adoration more consistently. I am putting myself in the presence of God helps me recognize God more readily, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Oh,
and
totally.
So I think maybe I'm having a little bit of difficulty answering right now because I haven't had as many of those opportunities lately. And so like I'm trying to think back, but then I definitely feel his presence and adoration, and I feel like he speaks to me there very easily. I think in the hustle and bustle of the day, and then if I don't get to do that as often, he's still talking to me, but I don't hear him it's like one of our kids. Like you tell them something and then you ask them to do something, you go off, you come back, and you're like, why didn't you do this? And like, you told me to do something? Like they didn't hear you. I actually kind of see that kind of relationship with my kids a lot. Like I'm like, oh, you're me when God's talking to me. And I think I feel that helps me sometimes too. Like when I'm getting really frustrated with my kids and something, and then like that little, how about you? Do you do this with God just as easily? And you're just like, oh, wait, man, this is how you must feel, God. I mean, God doesn't get annoyed with us, but he does get hurt at our inattentiveness.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That warms the heart of God because he has so much to give us. It would be like somebody with a car full of presents trying to schedule a time to give the presents to someone. And the person's like, I'm just so busy. And you're like, what? Yeah, my kids and I were talking about this the other day in the car. We have these really long, it seems like road trips just seem to bring out these really deep, long conversations. And we were talking about, like, what does that actually mean? Why do we have to meet with God? Why do we need to meet with God every day and pray? Like, is that just something we're supposed to do as Christians because that's just what we do and we just need to, like, re-plug in or whatever? Yeah, but it's much more than that. And my son actually came up with this analogy after we sort of worked through why is it so vital that we meet with God before the day gets going, even if it's for like 2 or 5 minutes. To get the goggles on almost, to see as he sees, so we can start seeing how he's working in our lives, so we can start kind of getting the vision for the day, number one. But my son was like, it's kind of like God standing like in front of us with all this huge basket of fruit, and it's all the food that we need and the food for everyone around us too. And we just like walk right past him and start like scooping food off the floor. And he's like, but I have the stuff. He's like, I have all the graces that you need for today, for every encounter that you're going through. I have it for your family as well, because as you know, as moms, we are mediators of grace to our children in the same way that Our Lady is a mediator of grace to us. God moves through our hearts, our spiritual life, to our children. And so here he is standing here with this basket of graces. I mean, it was an analogy he kind of thought up. And I've heard things like that before, but I thought it was really beautiful coming from someone his age to kind of figure out that the fruit wasn't just for the mom, it was for the kids too. And like, and I was like, oh. And so that reminded me of, things that I had learned before that I'd forgotten, that pretty much God already knows like how difficult my kids are going to be, or that thing that's going to happen today. And he's right here to kind of give me that vision and the fruit and the stuff that I need to get through that. But if I don't actually just take it, then I'm going to end up just kind of strong-arming it through my day, which is going to end gross and bad, and it's never going to be what it could have been if he was in charge. So I think help, number one, is letting him help you, is meeting that first time in the morning, even if it's on your way to work or on your way to dropping the kids off for 2 minutes. Could we just say, God, please help me today? Like, could that just sort of be the anthem of our life?
And you're talking about that on like the way to work or whatever. And that used to be like whenever we get into the car, but we don't travel as much as we used to, my kids and I. But like that, one of our morning prayers, we would ask, what do you want to ask God to help you with today? Yeah, and they would ask for patience or to be kind to somebody that they've been frustrated with, or like, what do you want God to help you with today? And they would list out those things. Probably should still do it at home, but it was just always easier in the car because we're already in the car together. And but it's that building relationship. We have to meet God so we can build that relationship, and it's easier to go talk. Who do you go to with your problems more often? The friend that you see, every week, or the friend that you see every 2 years, 3 years? I mean, the more you see somebody, the more that you're going to talk to them and have that type of candid relationship with. And I mean, it's all about relationship with God. We just have to initiate the relationship. Or
we have to respond to his initiation.
Yes.
But we have to. We have to say, "You are my helper." Like, that's such a humble thing that he would say. I want to help you. I want to help you understand yourself. I want to help you understand your life. I want to help you with your little problems. I really, really want to help. And there it is that God models humility and meekness for us. And humility and meekness are the foundation of everything. If you don't have those, you're getting nowhere in the spiritual life, zero. You have to have that. So maybe my problem is that I lack humility enough to start my day by saying, I cannot. I need your help. Will you be my helper today? In all the ways that have happened, and what's about to hit me the second I get up from this bed. Please help me.
And recognize that God sends us help. It's not going to be like, oh, we're going to get a vision of an angel and the saints of Mary to us. He's not going to appear that way, but he's going to come to us through others, through the things our children say, through the things that our spouses say. When I'm upset and my husband does that, Annie, not getting mad at him, but realizing, oh, I do need to take that deep breath. He's reminding me of that. He's reminding me of what I need to do to be able to rely on God's grace.
That's beautiful.
Or when, Noah, I've heard her put it block a blessing. Not be one to block a blessing. So, when you're struggling for help and you're like when I was going through the library, literally dragging 2 screaming children, wearing a 3rd screaming child, and had a very embarrassed 8-year-old walking next to me. And somebody asked if I needed help, saying, oh no, I'm fine, not responding to that help. It was, but in a way I was thinking, it's just going to make it worse.
It probably would have, yes.
Yeah. But those sort of things where somebody offers you help and that is that gift from God, and that could be that answer to your prayer. And recognizing those little things, being that person who's waiting, in the midst of a flood and praying God, saying God's going to save me, God's going to save me. And, the boat comes, the helicopter comes, all these things come, and then they drown because they said, oh, God's going to help me, but they didn't accept the help that God sent them. But seeing those things each of those things in our lives that show up for us are opportunities from God, either to grow in some way, to accept his help. And it's not miraculous in a way that is obvious, I guess I would say. It's miraculous in the little subtle ways that just our daily lives are. That gift of God, of life itself, that miracle.
You're talking about letting people help you, and we're talking about how does God help us in the practical. Just so last time I recorded, and so those of you who follow us on Facebook and Instagram know that our last episode was postponed, and I said because of medical things. Well, just a couple days after our last recording session, I ended up having an allergic reaction that was a little scary. And then a couple days later, those of you who listened know my dad's has leukemia, is going through cancer treatment. Well, he had an allergic reaction to his platelets. And the day that he had an allergic reaction to his platelets, I'm still coming down from all my stuff. My kids were at a 4-H thing, and I told the other leaders, I said, my dad's in the ER. I don't know what I'm going to need to do. And my younger brother had texted me that I should come down. And talking about God working through other people, I had several people tell me, I couldn't get hold of my husband that day. And I had several people telling me that not to worry, that they would make sure my kids got home okay, and to just go. And that was one of those, I knew these people, I went to church with one, and the other one has been the 4-H educator in our area for a while. So it's not like they're complete strangers, but it was, just, I had to take, just make that decision in that moment. Do I just leave my kids here? And I accepted that help. I said, well, thank you. And they said, just let us know if anything changes. And my husband eventually got hold of me and said he could pick the kids up. And I text messaged them and said that he would be a little late, but he could pick them up. And but just the fact that they were ready to watch my kids the rest of the day and to get them home if I couldn't make it back, just so I could be with my dad, was a huge help. And so letting people, just God helps us through others. And then, I've had other moms lately in our little group. I've had to go to the hospital or whatever, just on the last second or whatever. And they're like, well, I'll pick up this kid and take them to this activity so they don't miss it. Or do you want me to pick up your kids and take them here? And it's just, the past several weeks would have been really, really hard without that help. And so I guess when we get down to how is God working in our lives, and then the little things and through people, that's definitely how he's been working in mine lately.
That's how it should be. That's how it means to be a community. That's the body of Christ. I want to know from our listeners another way that I sense and know that God helps me is I'll be right about to say that reactive, cutting, frustrating thing, that the response, and immediately a more graceful and merciful response will just pop right into my head, and I have about 2 seconds to pick that one. And I know that that's the Lord saying, how about this instead? Have any of you ever experienced that annoying phenomena? Where God actually gives you a better script in your head? Have you experienced that before?
Yeah, I tend to, my family has a thing where if I'm too calm, they think that it's okay.
Yeah, that's
so
the
I
mom
usually
problem.
so I'll have to usually end my calm, better response with a, don't let that be. Don't let this fool you. This is still as important.
So firm charity.
Yes.
How do you?
And so I still have to clarify sometimes that, but yes, that there's times where I just want to go, and I go, could you please maybe do it this way? And this is why. And I am able to talk it out better instead of yelling and being upset. Yeah.
Because their brains just turn off. Once the yelling starts, it just, they just, see ya, I'm out. And it might get their attention, and they may actually do it, but they won't learn from it. Not that I don't yell at my kids. Please don't think I'm even remotely suggesting that. I do. But I've noticed that when I'm actually like going through over my day the night before, and I'm doing my Examen, and I find ways that I've let go of the hand of God and started reacting in my own. And I'll say to him, Lord, please tomorrow help me to just recognize that a little bit faster and choose that virtuous response. That's when those phrases start coming into my head, like when I'm actually looking for him to help me. So I think that might be the second pillar here, or the third, is A, you've got to say you need help. You've got to ask for the help. You've got to say, Lord, be my helper today. B, you got to rely on other people. You have to let people know. And when they offer to help, you have to take it. And then C, it's actually, looking back over your day and saying, when did I let you help me and when did I not? And then how can I do that differently tomorrow? So I think here you start it at the beginning of the day with asking for help. You're looking for it throughout the day. And at the end of the day, you're looking, how did you help me today?
I think that's one of the things that I've adopted in the last year or so that has been like, as I go to bed, I say, thank you, Lord, for this day. And I think back about any shortcomings I may have had and said, please help me do better tomorrow in these areas and any that I didn't see.
Right, because if you don't look at your day, if you don't think about incorporating an Examen, and we'll do some links to this of ways to kind of start making an end of day Examen a part of your life if you don't already do this, you're not going to really be able to see how God is showing up if you're not watching for it and you're not looking for all the ways that you need his help. So maybe that's a great place to start, is starting with an Examen.
Even it could be just as simple as, was I kind to all my family members today? Was I kind to everybody I met? Start easy, because sometimes when I hear Examen, I'm like, oh, you think about all the things.
Oh, no, it shouldn't
yourself.
be. We have to make sure we make that clear. It should be really quick.
Yeah.
It's almost like you go through a movie screen of your day and you rewind it and you watch it again and you look for the ways that you leaned into God and you look for the ways where you started to lean out and let go. And then you ask him to help you with that the next day, and you ask for any forgiveness that you need. Yeah. If you try to make that any longer than about 5 minutes, your brain is going to say no to that.
No.
At the end of the day, it just will. It's just not going to do it. So yeah, we'll do some links to that. So maybe receiving help from God is simply just looking for it and asking for it and then watching to see how it came. And to end it, Psalm 118:6, the Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is on my side as my helper. I will look in triumph. As for me, I am poor and needy, but the Lord takes thought for me. You are my help and my deliverer. Do not delay, my God. Psalm 40:17.
And as always, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Join us again in 2 weeks. Until then, may God bless you and may Mary accompany you. Coffee and Catholics is a proud partner of the SmartCatholics Podcast Network. Find new shows to love, meet like-minded Catholics, and join the community at smartcatholics.com.